All right, good morning, Chair Postman, Member Garrett, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thanks, Dustin. We'll convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. Good morning, everybody. Board Member Vollendroff is on leave. We will start off with rulemaking timelines for all industries and turn it over to Dr. Kathy Hoffman.
Great. Thank you, Chair Postman. Good morning to you and Board Member Garrett. I'm going to make this brief since I provided a pretty comprehensive rulemaking update in caucus last Monday. Not a lot of change in rulemaking timelines for us on the cannabis side or the alcohol side, although I do have an update, and that has to do with personnel changes since Cassidy will be our new rules manager as of July 16th. Really happy to share that and share that again with you in the board meeting today. I will take the rulemaking concerning the implementation of the social equity legislation from this last session. That'll follow me into the research unit. And I'll also be taking a private club membership and trade area rulemaking with me into the research manager or research unit as well. So just sharing that as kind of a general update. Also want to let you know, and I shared this on Monday, that the rulemaking related to the other implementation of 5448. So that's the consolidation of the Mass 13 permit review and 5448 implementation has been delayed by 2 weeks. So Daniel will bring the 101 to you on the 19th rather than today as we had planned. But that's really it for a rulemaking update today. Any questions?
No, not
okay.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Okay.
All right, if I may, can I move on to
private club?
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Again, I'd like to ask for your approval to file a CR 102 or proposed rules regarding private club membership drives. By way of background, this project was initiated by a rule petition that we received in July of 2022, so almost a year ago. And the board approved and accepted that rule petition on September 14th last year. And unfortunately, there were several delays in moving this project forward, but by early May, conceptual draft rule language was developed. And because the language was relatively straightforward, and then we're proposing to increase public membership drive functions from 1 to 2 days per calendar quarter, provide that membership drives be held on 2 consecutive days per calendar year, and provide that there needs to be at least 7 days between membership events. We solicited feedback through GovDelivery rather than holding an in-person or sort of hybrid listen and learn session for these rules. So all the written feedback that we received was highly supportive in nature, and the proposal before you today is identical to the draft conceptual rules that we offered to our stakeholders for consideration and comment. I'd like to point out that we don't anticipate any compliance costs associated with the proposed rules. And in fact, our analysis indicated that the revisions are anticipated to support continuation, expansion, and sustainability of needed community service provisions that many private clubs like Kiwanis, Lions, Shriners, and others provide to our communities. And these provisions of service also support our states, and particularly our agencies' social equity goals as well. So if approved for filing today, the public hearing would be held on August 16th, and we could present, final rules for adoption as early as August 30th, assuming there's no changes, with an effective date of September 30th. And so with that, I'd ask for your approval to file the CR 102 today. Happy to answer any questions.
I just had one. You just were mentioning that many of these private clubs provide public services such as the Kiwanis and the Agla. Is there a requirement for private clubs though so you don't have to have any public service component to do it, huh?
No, it's just a feature of many of the private clubs that we allow to have these club drives and serve alcohol.
Oh, okay, interesting, great.
Yeah.
Seeing no other questions, then would look for a motion to approve the CR 102 for private club membership drives.
I move that we approve the CR 102 for private club membership drive.
Great, and I second, then that is approved.
Thank
And
you.
let's move to item B.
All right, so that is approval for the CR 103 for second substitute Senate Bill 5448 regarding liquor license privileges for the delivery of alcohol. For those unfamiliar, SSB 544A or Senate Substitute Bill 5448 made some of the temporary COVID-19 related provisions of 2021 legislation, and that was in gross second substitute House Bill 1480 permanent and extended the sunset on other provisions through July 1 of 2025. So as you know, the agency relied on the exception rule process, for this project because the statute went into effect on July 1, and we needed to incorporate parts of the legislation that did not materially or substantively change existing rule, but rather removed expiration dates or referred to the new sunset date in 5 specific sections of rule. These rules will provide alignment with statute, along with the regulatory stability and predictability that our stakeholders and other interested parties seek. So with respect to the outdoor service rules, we removed all reference to the rules expiring on July 1 of 2023, so last Saturday. And that pertains only to 2 sections of rule, that's WAC 31403, 200, and 205. And with respect to alcohol endorsements for to-go sales, these endorsements will now continue to be available to very specific license types through July 1 of 2025, rather than expiring last Saturday. And that's reflected in the next 3 sections of rule, and that's 31403, 500, 505, and 510. No other changes are being proposed for adoption. Just very specific and limited changes. We did receive 3 comments at the public hearing on June 27th relating to reducing the amount of spirits that may accompany a meal that's delivered by certain of our alcohol licensees. Consistent with rule adopted in 2021, we worked with licensees, public health, and many stakeholders to land on the current 3 ounce per meal that is currently listed in rule. SSB 5448 does not speak to this limit, and considering such a change falls outside of the scope of this rulemaking, and in fact would require standard rather than exception rulemaking. So for this reason, the rules before you today do not reflect those comments. So if approved for filing, I will file with the code revisor and the rules will become effective immediately. So I'd ask for your approval to file this 103 and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Member Garrett? No? Okay, then is there a motion for the board to adopt the CR 103 for second substitute Senate Bill 5448 regarding liquor license privileges for the delivery of alcohol?
I move that we adopt the CR 103.
Great, and I second, then that is approved also. Thank you, Dr. Hoffman.
Thank you.
And we will now move to a third action item. Up, and there's Mr. Jacobs. Good morning. Turn it over to you.
Good morning, Chair Postman and Member Garrett. I'm coming to you today to present a response to a petition for rulemaking that was submitted on May 17th by Claire Mitchell of Stoll Reeves. I went into detail about this petition response during the caucus last week, but I'll just briefly go over it in a little bit briefer. But essentially, this petition is asking for changes to 5 separate sections of Washington regulations. WAC 314.01.005, which I'm going to call the definitions regulation, 314.11.020, which I'll call the underage sales, 314.11.025, the acceptable ID regulation, 314.17.025, the permit carry, and 314.17.110, the permit violation regulation. I'm recommending that of these 5 requested changes, that 3 of the 5 be adopted and that 2 of them be rejected. The definition regulation refers to explicitly points to a statute that doesn't exist anymore. I talked about that in detail last time in caucus, so I think that we should accept the request to change the regulation because it points to a statute that doesn't exist anymore. The requested change to underage sales regulation, that is necessary for the same reason as the definition regulation request, but if we just change the definition of the phrase at issue, we can actually solve the issue or solve the problem with both regulations. And that phrase, again, for reference, is cards of identification. Like I said, that was defined in statute. That statute was repealed by 1183. The jumping to the fourth and fifth, the
Wait,
three.
hold on 1 second. Mr.
Sure.
Chair, let's go back to number 2. So is the staff recommendation to accept, or do we not need to accept on that one?
We don't need to accept the request for amending 314-11020 if we change the definition in 314-01005.
So
So,
if we accept number 1, we can decline number 2.
yes, and the reason is because the petitioner is asking to just remove the phrase card of identification from our definitions entirely. And if instead of deleting the phrase, because they're proposing that we delete the phrase from both the definitions regulation and the underage sales regulation. But if instead of deleting the definition, we just change it to point to the acceptable ID regulation, then we don't need to delete it from the second one.
Okay.
So if we take a different course, we can solve that problem. And then if it turns out in other places in Title 314 WAC, this card of identification phrase pops up, we don't need to then delete that also. We can just say, hey, we amended the definition, so it now is defined in terms of something that isn't an obsolete statute.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry, I glossed over that super quick.
That's
So
right. I'm
thank
just
you
trying
for
to
stopping
keep
me.
track of the 5. I want to have clear notes on what the recommendations are, all 5. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, not a problem. Jumping to the fourth and fifth one, 314-17025 and 314-17110, those are regarding the masked permits. And the same problem exists in both, which is both of those point to this statute that got repealed in 1183. If we simply remove the citation of that RCW and instead cite to our acceptable ID regulation, we can solve that problem. But similar to the first one, we should accept the 4 and 5. We should accept requests 4 and 5 because the petitioner is correct that we have rules on the books that are referring to statutes that don't exist anymore. And where we can correct that, we should. So the staff recommendation is to accept the recommendations on 4 and 5. We can accept the recommendation on number 2 if it's easier. It's just that we don't have to if we go with a different course of action than
that's okay.
on the first one. But that gets to the sort of the meat of it and the part that's the most sort of topic, which is the biometric ID part. And that's for 314-11025, which is our acceptable ID regulation. That identifies the types of ID that that you can present at places that sell alcohol to verify that you're over 21. Currently, it lists driver's licenses, passports, military ID, merchant marine ID, tribal ID, other kinds. And there's also already a petition that's been accepted to add global nexus ID to this list. So we already, and that's in the queue for rulemaking. I don't know exactly when we'll get to it, but that is on the list. So we already are going to be amending 314-11025. That's already, scheduled to be determined when that's going to happen. But here, the petitioner is requesting to put all of those forms of identification in one category and then add biometric age verification systems as another category. And that is briefly where some software or some third-party company would associate a biometric identifier, which is like your fingerprint or your retinal scan or your voice print, and associates that with your government ID. And the idea being that you would go to some venues and instead of having to show them your ID, you could scan your fingerprint and then it would be connected to some kind of software that would then pull up your ID. And we talked about this a little bit last time, but I've done some more in-depth research on it. And I did also need to clarify some statements that I'd made last week. One of them was that the board asked about using a pilot project for in response to this petition. And at the time I said that I didn't see an issue with it, but after talking to our friends in licensing, I did want to clarify that pilot projects are typically done through the licensing division, and they're done in accordance with their regulations in a specific process. And so we typically don't initiate pilot projects in response to rule petitions. And I wouldn't want to give the impression to the petitioner that this would definitively become a pilot project. It could be presented for consideration of whether or not it would proceed as a pilot project, but I would just want to be clear that it's not like I can say, oh yes, it will be a pilot project, because that's ultimately not my call. That's for folks in a different part of the agency to decide. Additionally, I was asked to look into some other legislation and how some other states have done it. I was asked these questions during caucus, so I just wanted to follow up on that. A House Bill 1155 was passed during this most recent legislative session, and that bill is called the Washington My Health, My Data Act. And while it really relates to different companies than we're talking about here, if this petition were accepted, we would most likely need to look at that legislation to see if it would apply. The Washington My Health, My Data Act is meant to focus on healthcare companies and that sort of thing. I think a good example also is when folks register their fingerprint with their phone so that you can sign into your bank or whoever it is, or your healthcare app, just using your fingerprint on your phone rather than having to remember your password for each and every one. You end up registering the fingerprint with, I think, Google or Apple, depending on whatever kind of phone you have, and then you give that company permission to share the data so that you can use your fingerprint or facial recognition. You can hold the phone up to your face and then it signs in. I think and I didn't bring up, I wish I'd brought this example up last time, because I feel like that might be an example that folks are more familiar with. But this is, again, something that's kind of different, because it's not where your fingerprint is already with a company like Google or it's on your phone and it's used to unlock devices and apps. This would be where another company that's licensed with the venue or with the liquor licensee has that information. You register it with them, and then so you can go to whatever locations and not present your photo ID or not present your ID as would normally be required. The other part that I did want to talk about was what other states are doing. Currently, I'd mentioned that Colorado has something similar to this. I put a citation into the specific Colorado alcohol regulation, and it's currently used at the Colorado Rockies field. The other state that allows it is Arizona. I'm not sure whether Arizona's stadiums are currently employing it, but and then member Volendroff, I know he's not here, but he had mentioned some other states that he was curious about. And the other states he mentioned were Georgia and Maryland. And what I found was that Georgia and Maryland have something slightly different. What they have is they have mobile ID for driver's licenses. And that's done through their DMVs, essentially. So that's where, instead of if a cop pulls you over and asks to see your ID, instead of pulling out your physical ID, you can have it on your phone in your Apple Wallet or whatever it is and show that to them. Now, whether or not that means that also in Georgia and Maryland you can show your ID at bars, that's a slightly different question, because that's focusing more on the form of valid identification as their driving authorities consider it, rather than just for alcohol purposes. And I looked into this. Our Department of Licensing in Washington doesn't appear to have that option currently available to it. If they did, if something happened and a law was passed that they did allow the Apple ID driver's licenses on our phones in our state, we probably would, or we may look into if we in turn would have to allow it. But just talking about the examples of Georgia and Maryland, those are broader than this request here. I know that was a lot of additional extra information. So I'm happy to pause for questions.
I appreciate that. Questions, Member Garrett?
So we have a petitioner asking us to start accepting this as a form of ID broadly, or is it someone within a stadium? What is this request?
So that's not clear from the language of the request. The request itself was attached. They had I can say they had reached out to the rules team in advance to ask how to best format their request, because they were planning on asking for requests to multiple sections of rule. And so they'd wanted to make sure that they could submit a single petition with 5 rule sections, but they aren't proposing that this be implemented in a specific stadium or in a specific context. The request is just to change these sections of rule in these ways, and their reason is to allow for business flexibility and to sort of modernize our implementation with technology.
But
So-
look,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In order, if something like this was in place, in order for it to be utilized, the business, the stadium, the whatever would have to have technology themselves to utilize something like this, correct?
Yes, they would need to sign up, and that's part of their proposed definition, because the petitioner is proposing that we add definitions of biometric identifiers and a biometric age verification system that includes safeguards. It says, it has to be kept encrypted, it has to be stored by a third-party carrier that has certain assurances and complies with certain data requirements. It's not, and so yes, venue, in order to take advantage of, if we were to accept this recommendation, a venue or licensee, in order to take advantage of this option, would have to sign up with some sort of service, so that instead of when you go into the bar or wherever it is and showing your ID, they have some kind of, you scan your fingerprint.
So
Yeah, they would have to register with some sort of service.
yeah, and this is one of the issues. So if we were to accept all this and implement it as the petitioner envisions, any licensee could use biometric system for age verification on the alcohol side. A bar, liquor store, right? Beer hawker, whatever it might be at the stadium. And but there is nothing built in that gives us insight into what that system is or what the standards that system operates to. Is there?
So that was something I pointed out. So the proposed definition does say that it would need to be encrypted and secure. And it uses I mean, that was one of my concerns, was when I raised it, I was like, I don't think that if we were to accept this petition, I don't think that we could accept the petitioner's language as proposed. I think we would need to go into much more detail to talk about what secure means. And, we would have to we'd have to get our IT division and maybe other, we would have to go into more in depth about the sort of parameters of these vendors, of these companies.
So it sounds like this is too broad to even consider, but at the same time, the concept. So if a stadium or something specific and pertaining to something specific comes to us, that's when license can decide, based on putting some parameters in place, to try to do a pilot of something like this. Is that correct or not?
Go ahead, Mr.
So I don't want to speak for, yes, I mean, that
Okay.
would be up licensing's call.
But
That
through
would be licensing.
licensing, right?
Yeah, that would be up to the
Because we've
licensing
had
division.
stadiums and arenas, people come to us with something to try new and to kind of, we work through with them to do a pilot. Okay,
If we have statutory authority, if we have
Right.
existing statutory authority and just set aside whether it's one division or the other division of the LCB that does it, I think if the board is interested in trying to do a pilot program, the question we have to answer is, what is our statutory authority? Because I think, we are going to get some, we're going to run up close to some of the recent legislation related to facial recognition. And it's kind of new territory in that if the LCB were proposing facial recognition technology, say for applicants for licenses, there's a fairly specific and stringent process we would have to follow before we could do such a thing under this existing statute. That's not what we're doing here, though. But it's a state action that would allow a private entity to use facial recognition. And I think the question will come up, and already has come up in my conversations, is should that in fact trigger the same review and the same process that state use of facial recognition? I would say no, but some people have told me yes. So I think there's other questions, but what I'd say, Member Garrett, and I think this goes back to what Member Vollendorf asked about with the pilot program, if the board is interested in that, we can in fact pursue that with staff and see what
Right.
is the method of doing that. And I would just say, without passing judgment on the end result, this is a big step, and it would make sense to me to try this as a pilot before it was deployed to every one of our alcohol licensees.
right. And I agree. And I mean, of thinking ahead and things, it's gonna come.
Yep.
This type of this as everything evolve, it's going to come. So to start, instead of being told to do it or to be pushed on us, we could start working on something.
I think we could look at, I think one of the things we will find is there are people in our authorizing environment, in the legislative and executive branch, who are very skeptical of the technology. And I think we might find some pushback, but we can push till we get hit a wall.
Exactly. I mean, yep, it's gonna happen regardless at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing to look at that too. So I think we can revisit that piece, and we'll, like I said, setting aside which division deals with it. So,
Right. Kathy has her hand up, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, I just wanted to clarify something. We need to have rules in place to do a pilot project.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we're real clear on that. So we can do a pilot in certain very limited circumstances in the sports arena, under those rules. And that's how we've done that pilot project there. But I want to just make it really clear that we do have to do rules to do a pilot project. I think in the instance of axe throwing, that came about in a different way, through a different sort of agreement. But just before we close here, I just wanted to underscore that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Jacobs, let me just run down our 5 sections of rules here to see if I've got your recommendations right. Number 1, definitions accept. Number 2, underage sale reject. Number 3, acceptable ID reject. Number 4, number 5, both dealing with mask accept.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So then if there's no other questions, the motion would be to accept the staff recommendations on 5 separate sections of our rules. We will, I'll read them so no one else has to. Okay, so the proposal, the motion would be to approve the petition as to section 1 under our listing, which is 314.01.005. and the number 4, number 5, which is 314-17-025, 314-117-110, and then to reject the parts of the petition that would consider amending 314-11-020, and reject the part, yes. 2, and then 3, yes, and then 314-11-025. Okay. If someone listens to the tape, they'll be able to get that, but I won't be able to repeat it. So is there a motion to do all that?
I move that we do all of that.
Great. And I second, then that is done. Thanks for your patience with us, Mr. Jacobs.
No, thank you. That was a tough one. So thank you.
Appreciate your help. Okay. We are now to the point meeting for general public comment. Couple of general announcements about that. Everyone gets 4 minutes to speak, just 4 minutes. Everybody had to sign up prior to this meeting starting to be able to speak today. Ask you to focus your comments as much as possible on LCB business, and of course to refrain from any kind of personal attack. I'll mention if I think a speaker has done so. Please be respectful to the speakers and everyone else who's present, whether virtually or in person. Do not disrupt the meeting or disrupt while people are making comment. If there is disruptions, we'll pause public comment until that stops. And I'll also send a general reminder that we expect the language used to be appropriate for this public meeting as well. Reminder, everything we do here is recorded, be available online later today. If you're in the room, just a reminder, these microphones up above are very sensitive and will pick up all side conversations as well as rustling paper and all. So when you're 3 minutes and 30 seconds, Dustin will remind you that you've got 30 seconds left, and then we're going to ask you to conclude at the 4-minute mark. We'll begin our general and public comments with those that have registered to speak virtually. And as you know, because I think you're all regulars, it might take a second to connect. So we'll all be patient to do that. But number 1 is David Busby.
How about now?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I tried to be in here for the last one of June because one of my points of business was to congratulate Rick Garza, but now he's not here. I couldn't make it the last one because some things came up. So if one of y'all could just pass on that congratulations, bon voyage, bon chance to our friend Rick, that would be fantastic for me. Thank you. And then the second order of business is this happened like a month ago, but y'all fixed the CCRS so that the email message was coming back with the right file name, that same exact file name that I submitted, which was very handy for me because I had been putting these little canary records in the stuff we were uploading to make sure we were getting good responses from the system. And now I no longer have to do that. So thanks, and I'm done.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Next up is Christopher King. All right, you should be able to go ahead.
Terrific, terrific. Yeah, hi guys. Just real briefly, with respect to the language issue, I apologize for what was captured last time on a hot mic when I've been told that my time had run. As you know full well, I never issue intentionally profane remarks to anyone in a public manner. That having been said, let's resume the line of inquiry that I was making, which relates to William and Lucayla and what the compelling interests were or are in his successful candidacy for the position as director. Okay, so last time we were here, and I've mentioned this before, some of the same issues that we are countenancing here in Washington are present in Colorado. Westworld, the op-ed piece, for example, Social Equity Marijuana Rules Serve Big Business by Sarah Woodson. And for all the flack I'm getting for allegedly attacking Black women and all that stuff, all that junk, all that nonsense, all that BS, all right, can I say BS? All right. This editor, this writer of this piece is a Black woman. Sarah Woodson is Black the last time I checked, right? And she runs the Color of Cannabis. It's an industry group down there, well recognized. And so the same problems are being visited down there, or over there, if you will. I guess it's kind of over and down. I've only been to Colorado a couple times, but it's over and down. Anyway, yeah. And then another article in Westworld indicated that there's a new bill to overhaul the delivery and social equity programs. Then there was the fact that these delivery programs, which I call the Driving Miss Daisy program, where, you know, Black folks get a right to drive around the white man's product and such, that weed delivery, there's nobody participates in it. There was like 91% of Denver's 208 dispensaries do not have delivery permits. A delivery accounts for less than 0.5% of monthly marijuana sales in Denver, for example, okay? So that's not a really efficacious approach to anything, much less insulting to me, all right? So I'm going to return to my question and give you guys ample time, even though I know your compatriot is not there right now, Board Member Vollendroff. What exactly? See, and I want to be a cheerleader. I want to root for you guys. I really do. But I need to know, and I want to root for William and Lucayla too. So I just need to know, what are the compelling reasons behind his successful candidacy? What are his qualifications to the job? What made you hire him? So that I can go tell people, hey, well, the board says this, you know, the board says that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. You know, I don't like to respond. Let me just tell you, we've all talked about why we chose Will Lucayla, both in meetings and in the announcement itself. He's eminently qualified. He was impressive in all his interviews. I don't have a hard time imagining you championing us, but would welcome you to the effort. And I would say that whoever we bring in should be given a chance to show their skills. And we should all try to help a new director be as successful as possible and not condemn them before they arrive.
Well, I'm not bringing him before you arrive. I just want to see what's out there because, you know, I'm a journalist, man. You know, I've written for a daily. I edited a weekly. I research things and I haven't found things positive. I've only found things that were questionable or negative. That's why I bring it to you. And at this point, you still haven't really given me anything substantive. And believe me, I would be championing you guys. As you know, you may be aware, I work with government all the time. My job is to resolve conflicts. Okay, governments are my clients a lot. Okay, so I'm just trying to say, empirically, you guys have not given me anything to deal with. I can go through the laundry list of things again if I need to. And you know what they are, most notably, what happened to Kevin Shelton's letter to you guys and to Ollie Garrett and all that. And why didn't we get the responses back with
Christopher, you have 30 seconds.
Sammy Saad, you know, when we asked for his file. So again, is there anything concrete? I don't know why my camera says it's disabled. That's weird. But anyway, but yeah, is there anything more concrete you can offer me?
And I think that's your time. Yeah, I think I did what I could at this point. So we're going to move on. The next person signed up is Gregory Foster.
Good morning, board members. It's good to see you today. Wish I could be there in person. Couple of things today. Just wanted to extend my congratulations for the staffing changes there, and thank research manager Kathy Hoffman for all of her hard work over these last few years. You know, we don't observe all of Washington state government, but I can say that she has created the most public-facing engagement program for rulemaking processes that we've seen, and I think that's impressive. It's a lot of hard work that she's put in over the years. So looking forward to what she does with the research unit, and I hope we see comparable innovation and maybe even public engagement in the research process and encourage her to update the board regularly on what her team is researching and why. Also want to extend congratulations to Cassidy West on becoming the new policy and rules manager. You've got big shoes to fill and a backlog of rulemaking to take on, and hope to see that her former policy and rules coordinator role filled very soon. It's also kind of unclear to us what's happened to Jeff Kildall. We haven't seen him in any public meetings for several months, and it's my understanding from the job description for the manager role that there's supposed to be 3 policy and rules coordinators that are reporting to that role. So would be helpful to have some insight into what's happened to Mr. Kildall. And then finally, the Cannabis Regulators Association, or CANRA, hosted their external stakeholder meeting last week, Monday and Tuesday, and LCB staff participated in the event. And so, we appreciate the gestures that CANRA has been making towards increased transparency. They actually posted the agenda on their website and some additional meeting details. And it looks like there was another, kind of co-occurring in-person member meeting. They did that the previous year as well, and voted in new leadership this week. So, would appreciate an update from the staff who participated. Maybe at the EMT meeting next week would be a good time for that kind of an update. It's also my understanding that external stakeholders pay a fee to participate in the CANRA meetings, and I hope that those funds, in addition to paying for the existing staffing, salaries and such, maybe they could hire on additional staffing. Because it's been my understanding that some of the LCB staff have had to volunteer public time to assist this private organization, which, I'm a fan of CANRA. I think it's an important organization. It's not unusual for regulators to have a membership association like that, but we only get so much insight into the kind of policy discussions that are happening within CANRA and the kind of efforts that are being taken around the country and to move cannabis policymaking. So would appreciate an update next week if that's possible. And thank you for your time and all the work that y'all do there.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Foster. Yeah, we will be doing a CANRA update at EMT and following a suggestion from Member Vollendorf, I think it was, whenever staff is at these sorts of things, we've asked for a briefing and hear what they've heard there. So, okay. Last person we have signed up online is Mike Sy. Okay, Mr. Sy, you should be able to go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
You bet. Good morning.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, no video today. Good morning, board members, Garrett, Postman, and Vollendorf, even though he's not present. Thank you, Dustin. My name is Mike Sy. I am the Vice President of Black Excellence in Cannabis. I am also the founder of Emerald City Collective, the first downtown Seattle medical cannabis dispensary in 2010, which I have documentation to show that. It's also second in the state, which I could verify that through documentation for those who like to see it. I'm just signing in today. I'm not able to be there present with my counterparts. Just have some concerns with Ponder. People have, and this has been brought to our attention in the past week, that people have uploaded their documents over a month ago, and Ponder has replied saying that basically that they haven't. And so it's really frustrating for a lot of applicants at this moment in time, knowing that they have uploaded their documents, but then Ponder saying that they're not on the Cure account. So I just wanted to bring this to the LCB's attention. we as applicants and the community is being very patient during this process. But for a lot of people, it could be frustrating when you know that you uploaded your documents and then you get an email saying that you have not. So I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. And let me say this in regards to the new director coming on board. We at Black Excellence Cannabis are very excited to see that there is obviously new leadership there's been new leadership with the board over the past several years. And we're not here to attack anybody, whether they're Black, white, Asian, before they even started the job, started the position. We find it really disrespectful that we have people attacking someone that hasn't had a chance to show good faith in their new position. The new director, Will Luca, Lucia, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Lucella, thank you. Director Lucella, he wasn't here for 5052. He wasn't here in 2012 for I-502. So whatever he's done in Denver, that's in Colorado, that's there. We are looking at and excited to see what he is going to do here for the Washington State Cannabis. So with that being said, the new director has our full support at this moment, just like we are fully supportive of the direction the LCB has been going, and we're just going to continue that. But as you guys know, we'll hold you accountable and speak up and say things when we see something that's wrong. But no personal attacks from us. We're just here fighting for the inclusion and fighting for what's right, and we want to see things be done in a positive manner, and we believe that. Anyway, that being said, I just wanted to just bring that to your attention in regards to Ponder. There's just seems like there's some hiccups and there's some frustration there from a lot of applicants. So I know that LCB is somewhat hands off in this process, but I think LCB needs to know, because we at Bikes and Cannabis, we speak up for the community. Community is really intimidated to speak at board meetings and to speak to agencies. And so that's what we're here for, is to speak up for them. And that's it. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Great. Thanks for passing that on. We'll now move to people signed up in person, and the first is Peter Mann.
Good morning, Mr. Postman, Chair Postman. Good morning, Ollie Garrett, board member, and Ballandroff and Dustin. My name is Peter Manning. I'm president of Black Excellence Cannabis. I wrote a letter in regards to some of the issues Mike had raised. It starts off, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to share my unwavering commitment to fighting for equity in the Washington State cannabis industry and the challenges I have witnessed along this journey. I would like to start off by saying that we firmly believe that David Postman, Ollie Garrett, and Jim Ballandroff are not racist individuals and do not harbor ill intent towards our community. We firmly believe that. For years, I have dedicated myself to advocating for inclusion within the cannabis sector, believing it is to be essential to the success of our communities. Throughout this endeavor, I have encountered instances that I perceive as racism or potential discrimination within the LCB prior to the individuals that I currently have just named. However, I must acknowledge that as of today, I do not perceive the same level of discrimination within the board. I recognize the progress made. I believe that the LCB is making genuine efforts towards fostering a more equitable industry. My intention is to acknowledge the strides that have been taken, provide credit where it is due. We firmly believe that at Black Excellence in Cannabis, that we will continue to fight this fight along the sides with the LCB and any other agencies or entities that want to fight for equity. As someone deeply involved in the cause since 2015, my experience and knowledge of the cannabis industry's journeys towards inclusion have shaped my views. I believe I am qualified to draw these conclusions, as I have actively worked to raise awareness about the lack of diversity in this industry. To my fellow members of the Black and Brown community, it is crucial to recognize substantial progress we have achieved in obtaining equity in the Washington cannabis industry. We have made significant strides, but our work is not done. It is essential to address concerns with open dialogue, but we must also be cautious about making assumptions without a complete understanding of the facts. Recently, there have been criticism coming from a particular group, and while I respect differing viewpoints, I find their attacks on individuals within our community troubling. We must always seek unity, understanding, and solidarity among our people. There might be differences of opinion within our community, but it is essential to approach these disagreements constructively, rather than resorting to diverse actions. By doing so, we continue to build on the progress we have made. I have observed attacks on individuals, including the new director, William Lukel. It is essential to give him the opportunity to contribute to our cause before making judgments. Engaging in such attacks only perpetuates division and works against our shared goals. Let us not be quick to assume the motives of others. Instead, let us focus on achieving genuine equity, working together to create a brighter future for all members of our community. In conclusion, our journey towards equity in the Washington State cannabis has been filled with challenges, but we have made great strides. Let us stand together, supporting and uplifting one another as
Peter,
we
you have
continue
30
to
seconds.
fight for this inclusive industry. Thank you for your time and opportunity in this matter. Sincerely, Peter Manning, Black Excellence Cannabis.
Thank you. And last person signed up is Damian Mims. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Damien Mims with Black Excellence in Cannabis. Hope you all had a good weekend. I'm here to let you know today that myself and other applicants are struggling to find a way to communicate with Ponder. I received multiple pages of corrections on a Sunday at 5 p.m., which was in the middle of what I consider a 4-day weekend. Why not wait until Wednesday morning to start the 14-day deadline? In addition, myself and others have received requests for cure saying documents were not received, which is simply not true. There is no way to work with Ponder to make this right, which I have spoken to a multitude of other applicants and are having the same problem as me. Last time I was here, I was having the same issue contacting Ponder, with Ponder saying they hadn't received my application, a completed application. Now they're saying they haven't received documents from myself, others that were in fact submitted. I understand things need to be done in writing, but there should be a means of communication that make this process smooth for the Black and brown people. We are struggling to squeeze our way into this multi-million-dollar industry that we have been previously shut out of and even incarcerated for in the past. This process has been stressful and harmful to the pocketbooks and mental health of individuals that have already been damaged by being involved in this industry. Why is communication so difficult with Ponder? Applicants are struggling to get this done correctly, and we're not getting any help to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Then that takes us to the end of the agenda for today. And we will adjourn the board meeting for July 5th, 2023. And we will be back next Tuesday for a caucus meeting. We're adjourned.